So, Rich, how can my real estate photography business grow and stay on the cutting edge?
I'm glad you brought that up, Brian, by including hdphotohub.com. You just upload your photos and your clients will get a property website, social media flyers, and videos, all automatically.
Wow, that seems pretty easy. What do I do to get started?
It is easy, and all you have to do is register today at hdphotohub.com. And if you're using the referral code Shooting Spaces, you get your first property marketing kit absolutely free.
Free?
Yeah, free. HD Photo Hub is where great photos become a powerful marketing kit. Again, that's hdphotohub.com.
Welcome to Shooting Spaces, a real estate photography podcast. Discussions on gear, technique, industry news, and interviews with the best in the business. Now, here are your hosts, Rich Baum and Brian Berkowitz.
Welcome to Shooting Spaces, a real estate photography podcast. This is Rich Baum from Sacramento, California.
And Brian Berkowitz from New York.
And welcome to our episode of Shooting Spaces. How you doing, Brian?
Great, Rich. I am cold. We had about 8 degrees here today. So
wow,
the brutal winter hit full force with this nice cold spell. It is cold.
And I thought 56 today in Sacramento was cold. Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah, no, today was brutal. We had, with the wind chill, it was like minus 15. So, you know, kind of stayed in the house. There wasn't much shooting going on. There wasn't much of anything going on for that matter. And stay warm and toasty, a little hot cocoa.
We'll take it now because it's a little bit slow for me right now, and I think people are all discombobulated with the rain and the weather. But I know it's going to be picking up, so I don't mind these slower periods. You know. Yeah,
winter's a weird time. Last week I had nothing, literally nothing booked. I think I had one shoot last Friday, which ended up getting postponed because it snowed a little bit. And this week I have 4 or 5 shoots. I had 4 booked and then this one that postponed from last week. So it ended up filling up nice.
Yeah, maybe sometime we'll talk about cancellation policies and things like that, because that's always fun to talk about.
Yes, and it happens to all of us.
So Brian, what do we have coming up this week?
So we have a great interview with someone who is probably going to laugh at me that I was complaining about my 8-degree weather because he's from the Midwest. But I actually got to know him personally last week, and I guess we'll talk about it. But I think others have seen him in the last couple of weeks making his fame on these quick snap flash shoots all over Facebook. So without further ado, we'd like to welcome Jordan Powers. Jordan, thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, guys, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
And before we get into it, why don't you just give everybody your URL, your social handles, and all that so they can look your stuff up while we talk?
Yeah, I mostly hang out on Instagram, and I'm sure we'll talk about that later. But you can find me at Jordan Powers without the vowels on Instagram, so JRDNPWRS. And the reason I did that was because everybody always spells my name wrong. It's either they spell JRDON or DAN. But Jordan Powers also wasn't available, so I just did it without the vowels. And then my website is, I have 2 websites, and we can talk about that as well. But my real estate photography is Minnesota Home Tours, so mnhometours.com. And then my personal, interiors architecture site is just jordanpowers.com.
Awesome. So while I sat here complaining about my 8-degree weather, you told me before we started recording that you had what, like -5 or something today?
Yeah, it was like -4 with the wind chill. So I mean, I think with your wind chill, you had a little more brutal than I did today, but I mean, I'm in Minnesota, so, you know, you kind of get used to the cold. We get a lot of blue skies here, so the cold, I kind of forget about it. Plus, I'm in my car most of the time, and I've got the heat on, so it's fine.
Yeah, but you probably have a lot more cancellations than Rich and I. So
actually, I don't.
When we talked about to say when we get to that episode, we should speak to you, but apparently you don't. So.
Yeah, no, I've only had a few cancellations ever, and I don't know why.
So people shoot a lot in the snow there by you.
Yeah, it's just kind of what we do. Like today I had, even though it was -4, I had 3 shoots today, and tomorrow I have 4. We're supposed to get a blizzard again on Wednesday, and, I don't have any shoots scheduled, but if it's blizzarding out, nobody's out, then of course we'll probably reschedule it, but never really had a cancellation problem.
So 3 shoots, it took you 60 minutes to shoot, right? I'm going to hold you to that.
Too.
Well, so let's get into that
Yeah.
now that you brought that up, Rich.
That's a great transition.
Well, you don't have to. I'm just busting your chops, man.
Exactly. No. So, as I'm sure a lot of our listeners know, and if you don't, go to the real estate photography group, you will see it. I think, what was it, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, or maybe a month ago by the time this releases?
It's been at least a month, I think, but...
Oh, okay. So maybe even by the time this releases, maybe even, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever it is. But you released a couple of videos of shooting homes in 20 minutes or less.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what your motivation was behind this, and I guess you'll tell us, but I know that, we did interview Scott Dubose or Dubois, which is still unclear. We don't know.
I want to say Dubois.
I think it's Dubose. It's one of the two. Scott, please call us and let us know.
Yeah.
Okay. And, we talked about he shoots over 900 homes a year, and he's in and out. I think in 1 hour, he shoots and edits, and his editing's done before he even leaves site. He just sits in his car and I guess edits them on his laptop.
Right.
So what was your motivation behind these videos, which I guess you can say went viral in the groups? I don't want to say went viral, but went viral in our industry groups.
Yeah. Well, honestly, the main motivation was that episode. I heard it and I had never thought of that before. I'd never thought of just trying to shoot a house in 20 minutes because at the time, anytime I would use flash, it would, I just assumed, it takes an hour to shoot flash or longer or less, but when he said his 2020 rule, I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. I never thought of that. So kind of just in my own little world here, I was just trying to see if I could hit that 2020, see if it was actually realistic, because the main thing is I remember him saying, you guys asked him to post a video and he never posted a video. And I was like, okay, I want to see if this is actually possible. So I was honestly on my shoots, just trying to shoot as efficiently as possible, taking everything I already knew and not thinking too much about it and just trying to shoot as fast as I could. And then finally, when I started hitting 20 minutes consistently, I was like, you know what, I'm going to make a video because he didn't. And honestly, the motivation had nothing to do with fame or whatever. I was just pure excitement. I was like, oh my gosh, I did 20 minutes. And I wanted to show everybody it was possible because I didn't see the video. And that was the only motivation. I don't have anything that I'm trying to sell or anything like that. I just was excited about it. And yeah, that's all it really was. But through that, there was a lot of questions posed, which was really exciting for me. And I was able to answer them and connect with everybody. And Rich brought up one point during that shoot was that, I had already shot that house once before. So I was familiar with it. So I posted a second one a couple weeks after that to a house I hadn't been in before. I literally started the Facebook Live video before I walked in and shot that one in less than 20 minutes. That one was a little more sloppy because I hadn't had coffee and I was tired and didn't have the energy, and it wasn't as exciting for me anymore because I had been doing 20 minutes. But so that's
your second one and you're already making excuses, huh?
Yeah, I know, slacking. But so that's fun. I got to say, a lot of good points were brought up, and it wasn't intended to say, look, everybody, you need to start shooting faster. It wasn't like trying to set some kind of new standard. It was honestly it was an interesting experiment, if anything. I don't always shoot a house in less than 20 minutes. In fact, on average, it's probably 30 to 45 minutes, maybe. And if it's a design shoot, I'm going to take a lot longer, obviously. I'm going to spend probably 20 minutes just on one shot alone if I need to. But yeah.
Well, I'll say that, it's a really good thing to bring up because I can't think of anybody that's not looking for ways of getting faster. And my experience is, okay, I'm an hour 15 guy and I can do it faster, but I don't like doing it faster and I don't usually need to do it faster. But I have one example of I was shooting a pretty big house and I shot the whole house and I was on my last shot. And this is probably about 3,500 square feet. I was giving it the full Monty. I was doing everything. And I was up to probably an hour and 45 minutes shooting. I get to my last shot and I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but I realized my cam ranger was set on JPEG Basic, not RAW and JPEG Basic, but JPEG Basic. And I know from experience, because it's happened before, my Nikon D750 used to okay, I'm not ripping on Nikon, but Nikon, when you would take out the battery and put it back, put a new battery in, it would change settings. And this was a big quirk, and it never got resolved by Nikon because they couldn't prove it. But it happened several times. And before I shot in JPEG Basic, and I realized that no matter how much you want to, no matter how much you go, please, 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 you get home and you realize you cannot salvage a JPEG Basic on a 24 megapixel camera, even for MLS. So I did that. Anyway, I'm on my last shot and I'm like, oh, crap. I said, I got to bite the bullet. So the realtor wasn't there. So I just went to the homeowner. I go, listen, I'm really enjoying shooting your house. I'm going to just take some more shots. Is it okay if I get another half hour, 45 minutes? Anyway, I went back and, okay, I had shot the house before, right before. I ended up shooting the whole house in about 30 minutes, 35 minutes, the same amount of shots, same shots. And I really rushed and I really cut the corners. But the bottom line was it wasn't that much difference. So I think if you really put your mind to it, you get your ducks in line, you get your shots organized and everything working really well, I think you can at least cut off 15, 20 minutes off of almost any shoot. If you're taking an hour, hour and 15, hour and a half to shoot a house, I think you can easily cut off 15, 20 minutes.
I think for me, it all really depends on how much you care about the details. And that's just my personal take on it. Like I don't personally care about the details when it comes to real estate shoots, unless I see a house that I'm shooting that's like a portfolio piece, possibly. Like that's a little different. I'll obviously take my time there, but for real estate, I know that the images are going to be compressed or they're going to be printed on bad paper. They're going to be relatively small. Like there's not a lot of details that are going to really show up. And to be honest with you, they're only going to get a couple hundred views, like maybe a couple thousand if we're lucky, but they're going to get a couple. So I'm just taking everything into consideration. So real estate, I'm okay. Like I've come to terms with the fact that this is not going to hang in an art gallery and I'm not going to be judged on this particular image for years to come. So I've kind of in my head psychologically have come to terms with this. And that's why I chose to start shooting faster and more efficient. And to be honest with you, up until probably 6 months ago, I didn't even really shoot with flash all that often. I shot mostly single exposure photography. And when I say single exposure, I actually mean that. Like I have a Sony, I shoot with Sony A7 III. It doesn't matter the camera you use, but I just happen to have pretty good dynamic range with that. And I can get a lot of great images just from one single exposure. And, the images will be the windows will be a little blown out. The darks might be a little too dark, but that's fine. Again, I'm not being picky with my real estate photos. And, I kind of just came to terms with that. So I think for you, Rich, when you say, you're an hour-long shooter, your work, I mean, you go into a lot of detail with your work. Like your window pulls are always on point. You
can't
really
help it. I can't. Sometimes I wish I could be more like you're just saying, but there's always a little thing in my ear just bugging me going, oh, you got to get it. So,
and I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. I think that's everybody works different. There's people that, I don't know. There's people that shoot. I used to always shoot handheld single exposure and just be done with it, And it's not that I'm careless. It's just that for me, again, I just kind of I got to the point where it's like, okay, this is how it's going to be used. I'm not going to put that kind of effort into it. And I'm not going to charge a huge premium for it. I'm going to charge what this is worth. And if they want to use flash or if they want me to throw it on a tripod and take some extra time, I will. It's just going to cost more. And that's just how I looked at the whole thing.
I partially agree with you, but I'm not telling anybody not to care by any stretch of the imagination. But what I think my take on this is don't overthink it. And
yeah, exactly.
When I started shooting more and more design and architectural work, where you are spending 20 minutes, a half hour, or even 45 minutes on a shot, you then at that point realize when your images are, I don't want to say only, but only going on MLS, don't overthink your shots. They are what they are, and you shouldn't spend more than 5 minutes on a shot. It's just not necessary for the type of work we do. Mm-hmm. So, and I think that's the kind of this along the same lines that you're trying to get across, not to not care about what you're doing, but not to overthink what you're doing, because at the end of the day, they are just going on MLS, and after your listing is sold, chances are no one will see these images again.
Right.
So.
And, not to make a super hard transition, but Brian, you and I met, and we could talk about that a little bit, but, the place we shot, we only had an hour to shoot it. And, a lot of that time was just spent goofing around and just talking. And I walked away with 23 working images, only five or six of which I had on a tripod with lights. The rest of them I did handheld. And I'm not trying to say they're amazing or anything, but they could pass as listing photos for the most part,
Oh, for sure. I mean, I only came away with 8, but just to give everyone a little backstory of what happened last week, Jordan, you were in New York City for a couple of days for a shoot. So we met up and we went out and we shot this beautiful penthouse in New York City, and they only gave us access for an hour. And maybe we'll actually both post links to each of our shoots just so people get an idea of what we did, which would be pretty neat. But yeah, they gave us an hour, and it was pretty cool to see what we both did in an hour's time and come away with. Like you said, you had, over 20 shots. I only came away with 8, but I actually took a little bit more of a design approach to it, where I just did a lot of flash pops and a lot of compositing in post, where I know, like you said, a lot of your detail shots, you literally, because of the time constraints we had, you did handheld, running around, single exposure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just took what I could get. It's I wanted to walk away with some portfolio things, and a lot of the, some of my favorite shots are the single exposure handheld. I just, and it's not, again, and you're right. Maybe saying don't care is the wrong choice of words, but I'm just saying we are a lot more critical of ourselves than the viewer is going to be in most cases, and especially when we're so used to posting our images with other photographers, we get a critique back. You know what I mean? It's we don't get critiqued necessarily from the public, So my viewer is the public. It's not other photographers in most cases, unless I'm talking about Instagram. Usually it's other photographers I want to kind of, network with and challenge myself a little bit. But yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
So what do you think of New York City?
New York City was cool. I mean, it's a little different than Southern Minnesota. It was cool getting to meet you. Obviously, we chatted about marketing for a couple hours at the bar, which was fun. And then we got to explore. We met up with a designer, shot a couple photos for her. That was a good connection to make. And then the penthouse we shot was, just a really cool experience itself. And you didn't really share the details. I'm not sure if you want to talk about it, but it was actually one of Ryan Serhant's listings from $1 Million Listing. And that was a big deal because it's, of his clout or status. And you can feel free to take this out if you want, but I hope for you at least that leads to other things. I'm not sure what's come of that, but I don't ever intend to go out to New York City and shoot again, but to be able to meet up with somebody that's local there and help make that introduction, I hope that that leads somewhere for you.
Oh, I appreciate it. Rich, when was the last time you were out here?
3 years ago, and
so that's not so bad.
We took a trip to Washington, and then we went to New York City, and we did the New York City things, and we went to see the parade, Thanksgiving parade, and it was 2 below zero in Washington D.C., and it was the year 3 years ago, I think it was 3. That what do they call them, the balloons were all at street level because it was blowing 30 or 40 miles an hour, and it was so cold, but we had a great time, and I loved just going around shooting. I loved walking through Central Park, shooting in Central Park, and I got a couple of just great portfolio shots of one from the not Staten Island Ferry, but the going over to the
Rikers Island
Liberty. Oh, it was awesome, and I just loved it. So.
Ellis Island.
Ellis.
Right. It's funny. So I'm going to tell a funny anecdote from last week when Jordan was here. Jordan asked me about going over to Rikers Island. Mm-hmm. Now, Jordan doesn't realize that Rikers Island is a prison, not a prison, but a holding facility here in New York, right outside LaGuardia Airport, where they put all the criminals right before they go to, I guess, trial or their arraignment. With Jordan, what I quickly learned is Jordan meant Ellis Island, where all our immigrants proudly came through. But Jordan wanted to take a trip to Rikers when I advised him against going there. Yeah, probably not the greatest place to go. No. So. But aren't you, Rich? You're a native New Yorker, aren't you? from being a kid, from back from when you were a kid.
I was born in Long Island and Glen Cove, Long Island. But I was 3 years old when I moved. I told my parents I want to move to Hollywood, so I knew what I wanted to do when I was young.
Packed your bags at 3 years old and headed to the.
But I did have the opportunity to work on a movie. It was really interesting. We did a movie called Another You with Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder, and we went to New York City. And it was a big deal for me because union-wise, they had to use somebody locally in New York. So it's really hard to bring department heads or crew from L.A. to New York because of the locals. And I got there and I was working on it, and we ended up shooting for 6 weeks in New York City. And it was a fantastic experience, but they didn't like the footage and they fired the director and they went back to LA and they reshot every single foot of 6 weeks of feature film photography. And I'll never forget that. But I had a great time in New York City.
Imagine.
No other place in the world like it. Trying to work in New York City, oh my gosh, it is beyond difficult. It is just getting around with trucks and the noise and just crazy. But it is its own unique thing.
Anyhow, we got a little sidetracked there.
Yeah,
but
that's me. It's my fault.
Yeah. So Jordan, you were telling us earlier you have a couple different websites. What's the I guess the reason for that? And you want to explain to us kind of, I guess, in a nutshell, without getting too in depth, how your model works and what you do and why you have different websites and all that stuff.
Well, I think first and foremost, and you and I talked about this a little bit when we were in person, but I would consider myself more of a business person than a photographer. Like, I'm a photographer. That's the tool I use, very much so. But, when I used to do weddings a long time ago, I quickly learned that it's important to not market yourself as a generalist, but more of a specialist in a certain area. And that's why currently I have two different websites. One is geared more towards design, architecture, and builders. The other is geared specifically for real estate and working with realtors. And that's the main reason I have that. And I shoot very differently for each of those as well, as all of us do. So you're not going to see many, if any, real estate shoots on my my design site, and you're not going to see any vice versa. There's also a completely different marketing approach to each one of them. But my design portfolio is going to be revamped very soon here. So I've just been focusing on my real estate marketing probably the last 2 months or so, and I've completely changed the way I'm doing business there.
I think that's great, and you bring up a really great point, Jordan. I think it's super important, especially for the people that are listening that are kind of newer in the business, the real estate photography business, and trying to find their way. Because, I don't think there's anybody that just wants to be a real estate photographer the rest of their life. I think that they would like to, shoot or luxury real estate and then shoot design and architectural and whatever. But I think it's really important to have a site specifically for real estate if you're going to do it, and maybe add in headshots. But I don't think you want to add in anything else, because I found this, I don't know about you guys, but I found that real estate agents, God love them, but I don't think they want to know about any other shoots I do. They only want me to be shooting for them. They don't want to know that I had a wonderful wedding shoot last weekend because I might not be available when they need me. So I really think you just keep it really business and you keep it straight, where I just do real estate photography, and I just do real estate photography for you. So I think it's really important. Don't throw in your baby photos with your real estate photos. Just go get a website just for real estate photography, and then get one for design if you're going to do that.
And to even push that a little bit further, if you were to look at my real estate website, it's kind of like focused on realtors, but it's like on steroids. So when you go to my website, you don't even see my portfolio. You don't see any photos of houses. You don't see, it's actually kind of hard to find those things. Like, you have to go all the way to the bottom of the site to find those. And it's designed on purpose, intentionally this way. Like, all the copy of my website is focused on the agent. And it's mostly designed to, the message I'm trying to communicate to them is, ultimately it's, you're not a photographer. I'm your photographer. You go do what you do. Let me help you. So you can be more successful. You can focus more on your clients. You can focus more on the stuff that you're uniquely suited to do. And I'll do other things for you that you don't need to. So it's really designed to, it's more than just photography at this point. Like my website is not about selling them real estate photography or real estate video. I'm trying to help them understand that I'm their marketing partner. And it starts there. And there's, it goes way beyond that, but we can go into that more if you'd like.
Well, I think that's very important because, first off, as you just mentioned, I think people have to take a step back and take a more business-like approach to what we do, instead of just looking at the art of it, because we do all run our businesses. But like you said, I think it's important to sell yourself as a marketing partner. I don't know if you want to go into detail, but when we met last week, you were telling me an example of a couple that you met with, that you convinced them to start some sort of YouTube channel or Facebook channel.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly the details, and it's blowing up. So this is a perfect example of what you're saying. So if you want to just, without going into too much detail, explain what you did and use that as an example of I think what our job is not only a real estate photographer, but as a person helping agents with their marketing.
Would you guys mind if I went back a little further than that and led up to that point? Because it
Sure.
might help round everything out and give some people listening like maybe just a new way of thinking about how to market their business.
Sure.
And I'll try to keep it brief because I tend to ramble. But so I've always taken a strong outside of the box marketing approach to my business. Even when I was when my website looked like everybody else's, my marketing on Facebook and online was always slightly different. So for example, last year, well, I guess it would have been 2017, mid 2017, I, started creating a talk show essentially in my town where I basically brought a realtor that I worked with, brought them on. I interviewed them in front of a green screen, threw up a background. It was kind of cheesy, but it was getting between 5,000 and 10,000 views in my little town of 60,000 people. And it was getting shared, and they were kind of going viral within my town. And before you know it, I'm walking around, people say, "Hey, you're the Facebook guy," and I'm getting free drinks at the restaurants. But so that ultimately led to my business kind of skyrocketing for where I'm at. I almost doubled my business, specifically with video, from 2017 to 2018, which was a significant amount where I'm at. Like I shot close to 500 homes last year, but a fourth of those had video with them. And that was a huge upsell. If you guys are including video, I basically charge twice the amount I do of standard photography. So, that it, close to double my business when you look at the numbers. So I'm always trying to do different things. And when people saw me doing that, they started hiring me for video. But the problem was they were just taking the videos, posting them to Facebook, and then forgetting about them. They weren't actually using them and leveraging them to market the property properly. And same with photos. I noticed, and everybody does this, the realtors take the photos, they post it to the MLS. Maybe they'll make some generic graphics for it saying new listing, and then they're kind of done with it. They don't do anything with them. So I put out a survey not too long ago, kind of surveying all the people that I work with to my mailing list. And sure enough, it kind of supported what I thought. Like the one of their biggest struggles was marketing. Like they're not marketers. They are marketers technically by trade, but they just don't have that marketing mindset, at least where we're at in southern Minnesota. And I saw this as an opportunity.
I also think social media is a whole new ball game for a lot of these agents.
It really is. But even the younger ones that were just coming on when the market was hot, you get all these new realtors getting their license, and a lot of them are Facebook savvy as a social media outlet, but as a business outlet, they're not. It's just not there. They're not connecting the dots. So me being, I've studied this stuff. I have a mind for it. And we talked about that a little bit, Brian. Like some people have more of a business mind. Some people have more of an art mind, whatever. I tend to have more of a business mind, and I'm always looking at the psychology of things. And I knew that, okay, if I could get them to use these videos properly, whatever that means, it's different for everybody, but to where it's more aligned with their brand as a realtor, then what I provide then becomes 100 times more valuable. And it's nothing for me to charge them a couple $100 for a video because they're seeing the return on that. Whereas if they're paying me for a video and there's no proper marketing strategy behind it, they've just wasted $200 or whatever it is for a video. So if I can I could figure out a way to rebrand myself as more of a marketing partner so that when they do hire me, they're not only getting photography and video, they're getting a strategy behind that that's aligned with their brand. And that's kind of the foundation for where my site is currently designed as. And, there's a really good book that I've recommended to people. And Brian, I know you've been reading, or you just finished it recently, but how to build, or building a story brand. That book is a really great book, and I recommend everybody listen to it or read it. But it will it helps you clarify the message that you're trying to send to your clientele. And if you look at my website is basically to the T what they suggest doing in that book. And I did that intentionally because I met with an actual Storybrand consultant, and we went through my my website, and she helped me design it. And it still has a little bit of work to go, but I got pretty much the bones of what I need. And so far this year, and I'm sorry, let me back up a little bit. Prior to this year, I was offering, I would offer discounts to brokerages who would commit to shooting all their listings with me for a year. But this year I decided, instead of offering that to them, I'm not offering any kind of exclusive rates until they meet with me face to face and talk to me about their marketing plan. So if a broker wants a exclusive rate with me, I'll give that to them only if they meet with me and explain to me what their marketing strategy is. That way, it gives me several things. One, I'll better understand what their needs are for 2019. But two, it also gives me an opportunity to sell them the other services that I offer that they may not have been aware of. That's and then that leads up to the initial question you had, why I was meeting with these two agents in the example.
But I think, sorry for interrupting, I think more than anything, what that does is it builds trust with your agents and you. And that's the most important thing, because having that meeting and finding out their goals, whether you really are interested or not, it doesn't matter. But they see that as good customer service, and you're just building trust with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, it makes me a lot more empathetic to them. It makes me view them as not just another client, but like, hey, this is somebody just like me who's trying to have a successful business, but I don't have anybody helping me. Like, if I had somebody helping me as a photographer doing the same thing that I'm doing for these agents, I would be loyal to that person forever. Even if they change businesses, I would want to know what they're doing. Like, I would be bought into that person. And that's what I'm trying to do. And these two agents, and you can see a photo on the website. If you scroll down to the second section, it's a photo of me meeting with them. And this is the actual meeting. This isn't staged. It's a photo of me meeting with them. And they approached me, or they emailed me asking about the discount. And I said, yeah, we can talk about discount, but I'd love to meet with you first, yada, yada. And we met for about 2 hours that night. And I just sat down and asked them, I was like, so what's your plan for 2019? What are you guys going to do? And because previously they had only hired me for photography on a couple shoots. And I wanted them to start using video. I wanted them to start using other services that I might offer. And when they came to me, they were like, we just, we think we want to do a team now, and we still want to do photography, but they kind of didn't really know what they wanted to do. And I kind of walked them through, I just asked them a lot of questions, and we came to this point where it's like, okay, they've completely rebranded themselves. They gave themselves a new name as a team. They're no longer selling themselves as realtors. They're selling themselves as, they're not selling houses anymore. They're selling a lifestyle. They're selling an idea. They're selling a vision and a dream to their clients, or to potential sellers. Whereas before, if you looked at any one of their posts, it was all new listing, $32,000 or $300,000, and all the specs on the house. But now every piece of content they put out is personalized content that's just meant to add value. So, for instance, Sarah is her name. She's really good at design. She has a really good eye for design. And her husband's August, and he has a really good eye for remodeling and fixing things up. So the video content that they're putting out now is geared towards that. So every week they're putting out a new piece of content that is designed to help potential buyers or sellers design their houses nicer. And that's their marketing material now. They're no longer just trying to sell houses. They're trying to sell a lifestyle, and they're building trust with the community. And there's other groups that I've met with that are doing the same kind of thing, but just taking a completely different approach. And their marketing is going to be completely different, but they're all using this. I talked about that Storybrand book. They're kind of using that same format for their marketing. It's a very loose version of it, but they're just changing the narrative to be less about, look at me, I'm a fancy, flashy realtor that drives a nice car. to, hey, I'm just somebody here that wants to help you. And I'm trying to do the same thing for them. I'm no longer just this photographer with a big fancy camera. I really genuinely want to help them, because if they're successful, I'll be successful. Their seller or buyer will be, happy, and everybody's happy. And that's how business should be, in my opinion.
Sure, it's definitely a good and unique marketing approach that you take. And as you mentioned, I just literally finished the book about a week and a half ago, and I am going to take some of the things from the book also and apply it to my marketing as well. But I think everyone's in different regions and all that, so I think people have to figure out what works for them, what doesn't, what your strengths are, and kind of figure out ways to apply new marketing, I don't want to say gimmicks, but new marketing tactics, if you will, to how you go about getting and helping your clients. But
yeah, and it has to align with, I'll sorry to interrupt. It has to align with your personality as well. You can't fake it. Like, you have to be authentic. You guys talked to Matthew Stallone too long ago, and I've been following him for a while. And there's one particular video he put out on his Instagram that has stood out to me, and I always remember it for some reason. And I remember the look on everybody's face and everything. But there's a video maybe he'll share it again after he hears this, but he was showing up to like an open house. He was going to shoot a Twilight, and he walked in the house, and all the realtors from this brokerage were sitting in there. And when he walked in, it wasn't staged. Everybody was like, hey, they were celebrating that he walked in. And he was walking around giving people hugs, and then he started drinking with them. You know what I mean? But it was like just a thing he put on his Instagram stories. And I remember that. But like, that's how, he's doing that with his clients. He's not just a real estate photographer. He's built some strong relationships. And again, I think it's different for everybody. You have to be authentic to who you are. But these marketing tactics, like, there's a lot of talk in the groups, like, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to, go to presentations, you need to make brochures, you need to make a nice logo, a nice website. I mean, maybe, but like, what, who are you, and what is your unique approach to your business that you're going to be able to, relate to people with? How are you going to use yourself and your own personality and your experience to market yourself? And I think it's going to be different for everybody. This Storybrand thing isn't for everybody, and not everybody should do it, but it's at least worth exploring.
And I'm really just starting to get into, as everybody, the world knows, I'm just getting into Instagram, and I'm really starting to sort of figure it out. And I've kind of figured a little bit out about YouTube, how it can work for me, and how different things are working. And I think that this is all just evolving. And I think, Brian, I've mentioned to you, when you see somebody has some super high numbers, I'm not even sure what this is going to mean in 2 years. So this is a constantly evolving thing. Who knows? I'm not going to say it's going to be like MySpace, but I think that we all have to be on the lookout, be creative, read books like that. By the way, Brian, I think we should definitely put that book in the show notes, so if people want to read it, and just to really start spending time, not just looking at camera gear. I'm really okay. I have gear acquisition syndrome, and it's been a real big problem. But I want to say I haven't bought anything this year, but I have. But I just want to say I've really been noticing people buying things and really into it. But I want to really tell everybody to take the time to read about your business and about branding, because that's going to stay with us forever, because that goes back to Barnum and Bailey back in the 1800s, branding. And I just think it's a great idea. And Jordan, you brought up some really good things, good solid things. So I think it's really important for everybody to, we all like the gear and we all like shooting, but really think about your business. And I know I personally can do a lot more in that area.
And customer service as well. And that's huge. I'll tell you a story. This happened to me literally about an hour and a half ago today, before we started recording. About 4 months ago, I added to my website a live chat feature where, anybody visiting my website can live chat. And I have an app on my phone, and if someone initiates the chat, it comes into my phone and they can chat with me. And I did it about 4 months ago. And occasionally I get a random question here or there. And I do get a lot of spam. People chat with me to tell me about all the great editing work they can provide for me, as I'm sure we all do that. We all get that. But literally an hour and a half ago, I got a chat and it popped up on my phone and I was speaking to the lady and I booked a shoot. I'm shooting her tomorrow afternoon because of it.
Nice.
So a lot of these small little things, you know, look, it's the first shoot I ever booked and I've had this live chat on my website for 4 months. But that being said, you know, I have a WordPress site. It's free to use if anyone wants to use it. It's called Tidio, Tidio. Didn't cost me anything. It's a free service and it pops up on my phone. So it took me about a half hour to set the thing up and I just leave it. And you know what, for that half hour, was it worth me 4 months later booking the shoot? Sure. I mean, I don't know if anything's ever going to come of it again, but that being said, you know, she called me. She said she needs a shoot ASAP. I'm shooting in the morning tomorrow. I was open in the afternoon and now I have this on the books. So a lot of these small things that you can just, you know, weave into your site or just come up with that is not being utilized, add a lot of value to your customers who just want to get a response.
Interesting. Good
And
idea.
Rich, didn't you say that you've booked a shoot off of Instagram already, haven't you?
It's an ongoing story. It actually, we were all full bore to go ahead with an apartment complex. And then people, it's one of those shoots that, okay, here's a good analogy. It's like, you know, you're shooting real estate and you're shooting with an agent. They may have to deal with the homeowner, but that's about it. Maybe they have to deal with the stager or whatever. But you get into commercial photography and all of a sudden you've got so many cooks in the fire. You have designers, you have people that work on site, you have you know, any number of people. So I was all going forward for supposed to be tomorrow, but and it's still going to go forward, you know, knock on wood. But it just got involved where an email came and everybody stop and CC'd everybody. Everybody stop. We have to wait a week to do this and blah blah blah. So you know, never count your chickens till they hatch. But I've been told it's still going to happen. But the bottom line is it did instigate a photo shoot, a commercial shoot, and a couple of more other people have shown interest. And it just kind of bottom line is that whatever happens to that shoot, it got me really, really excited. It got me jazzed, and it got me in January to really start motivating myself to spend more time trying to procure more designer work, more upper end stuff, because that's where it's at to me. And so, yeah, no, I'm totally on board with it. And I'm still doing the 3 to 5 photos a day with
crazy.
the hashtags.
Hey,
yeah.
I just noticed, Rich, I'm not sure if have you set up your Instagram as a business profile yet?
I have a business one and I have the other one, so I'm still figuring that out.
Yeah, I would convert yours to a business profile. You'll get to view all your analytics and everything.
Okay.
And one thing you touched on earlier, one of you guys touched on like the followers, like how much that actually means. So like for me, I've always been one I don't really care about followers, and most people don't either. It's more your engagement rate.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a website called, and you might find this useful. It's called socialblade.com. And you can actually view, if you have a business profile, you can view basically all your analytics. You can view your engagement rate. So like for me, for example, I'm looking at it right now, I've got a 4.48% engagement rate, which is relatively high. I only have 3,500 followers at the time of this conversation, but 4.5% engagement rate is pretty good actually. And Brian, I looked yours up too. You're at 4.65% engagement rate. So you actually have a higher engagement rate.
I'm gonna have to do that.
But I have half the amount of followers of you, so
it doesn't matter.
Like you said, so that's what I'm saying. So numbers don't make a difference.
They really don't. And you know, and it's not to say that this indicates fake followers, but it does give you a good indication as to how many people in your audience are actually actively engaging with you. And you know, there's some people that have like 10% engagement rate, which is insane. But engagement rate is really important, and you can tell. I gauge whether or not I'm doing okay on Instagram based on my engagement rate. Like, I don't really care so much about likes. I mean, obviously everybody wants to get a ton of likes and a ton of followers, but when I look at my engagement rate, I can say, yeah.
Well, don't likes increase your engagement rate?
They do, but I'm not like searching for a number. Like I'm not I'm not fishing for likes. If I can say, hey, I'm still getting a 4.5% engagement rate, you know, with my following where it's currently at, and I'm posting this kind of copy and this kind of whatever, I'm doing well. And if I see that start to go down, then I know to change my approach to what I'm posting. Mm-hmm. And I only post once a day. I don't do the 3 to 5 times a day.
That's what I do. I don't post
maybe I would grow faster. Rich, you've grown really fast posting as much as you do. So maybe it's something I ought to consider. I don't know.
I just hit, what is it, 1,600? I think I've gone almost 600 since like 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's crazy. So like me, I only started posting my design work back in May, and I've doubled my following. Like I think I had 1,800 followers when I started, and now I'm at 35.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only posting. Now I would post 3 to 5 times a day, but I'm not marketing to real estate, to realtors. I'm using my Instagram to only market to designers and builders, and that's it. Like nobody else. In fact, the shoots that we lined up in New York were both connections I knew through Instagram. Well, the one was a personal connection, but the only reason I was still in touch with that person is through Instagram. And then the other was a designer that I just happened to meet on Instagram who found my posts through hashtags I used. And yeah.
Awesome. Some good tips there. Okay. Well, Jordan, I'm going to have to let you know, we're going to have to wrap it up. And we so appreciate you coming on. And it's been some very valuable information. And I'm sure a lot of people will get a lot out of this interview. So thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, I think the biggest take out of this is it's not, for all of us who run our own businesses, it's not all about the photography. There's so much more that goes into it, from marketing to social media to this to that. You got to be on top of it all. So.
Yeah. And I'm happy if anybody ever wants to chat about it. I love talking about it just for fun. So shoot me a message.
And your websites are?
Websites, you can find me at jordanpowers.com or mnhometours.com. But honestly, Instagram is where I hang out. Like you can look at my website if you want, but if you want to chat, like find me on Instagram, Jordan Powers without the vowels. I'm on there like so much. It's crazy.
Sure. And we'll post a link to all your websites and your social handles and your Instagram account, all that on our show notes.
Sounds good.
But yeah, Jordan, it was first off, it was awesome meeting you, hanging out with you. We went one night to a local bar. We got some drinks, and then we shot the next day, all in New York City. So it was pretty fun.
It was fun.
And thanks for coming on.
Yeah, for sure. And you can take this out really quick. I just want to say, if anybody has the chance to, you should definitely meet up with another photographer and see. Like that was my first time shooting with anybody that I didn't know, and seeing how Brian shot. And just learning little things like how he looks at things was super valuable to me. And I don't know, I'd encourage anybody to do that if you can.
I agree 1,000% too. And it's so much fun to do. So go out there and meet your competition and embrace them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we've all done it. I know, Rich, you've said many times you got your start through Peter, or you shadowed him a few times. So yeah, that's the best way to learn and to get better. So, and
I have a feeling you and I will shoot together in the months coming up. So
I hope so. All right. So again, we want to remind everyone, subscribe to our newsletter, follow us on social, everywhere you can find us. Go read our blog. We are everywhere now. So anywhere you look, we are.
Shootingspaces.net is the blog. We're getting articles up and some good stuff. And don't forget on our podcast site, shootingspacespodcast.com, you can absolutely leave a question for Ask the Guys, and we'll answer it ourselves or get a top professional to answer it. So please get on there and record a question for us. Yeah.
And Jordan, if you ever want to write an article for us, by all means, we'd love to have you come and do some posts for us. So.
Awesome. And we're doing submissions. So if you're interested in writing for Shooting Spaces, send us a request or send us an article, and we'll see what's going on. And who knows, maybe you'll be able to do an article or two for the website. Be great.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right, Rich.
Well,
it's always a pleasure.
As always, a pleasure. This episode of Shooting Spaces has been brought to you by hdphotohub.com. Helping your real estate photography business grow and stay on the cutting edge. Just upload your photos and your clients will get a property website, social media flyers, and videos, all automatically. Register today at hdphotohub.com using referral code SHOOTINGSPACES, and you get your first property marketing kit absolutely free. HD Photo Hub is where great photos become a powerful marketing kit. Again, that's hdphotohub.com.
This has been Shooting Spaces, a real estate photography podcast. Subscribe to the show and don't forget to leave us a review. You can also follow Rich and Brian on social media and at their website, shootingspacespodcast.com.